Thank you and good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate Strength2Food partners for the amazing work that you have done through the years and also for this successful conference. And it was really a pleasure to be a member of the stakeholder advisory board that give me the possibility to follow the development of the project closely. And so I'm really glad for being here today with you, representing AREPO and discussing with you the implication of your work in terms of policy and research development. I will focus in particular on AREPO vision concerning the future development of EU quality policy. So I will just briefly introduce the association. AREPO is the Association of European Regions for Product of Origin, and is a network of regions and producer associations dealing with product of origin and EU quality schemes. We represent 33 regions from 8 different member states, and we cover over more than 50% of EU registered geographical indication. What I would like to highlight in particular is our vision concerning GIs. We see GIs, geographical indication, as tools for rural development and territorial planning. In fact, geographical indications play a major role in maintaining economic and social activities in rural areas, and therefore they are crucial in preserving territorial balance at regional level. That is why the result of Strength2Food project, and in particular the strategic guide on sustainable food quality schemes, are really a fundamental instrument for our work. In fact, the guide highlights the important contribution of GIs in terms of public good creation for the society as a whole. And I believe that this is even more relevant in the light of current EU policy developments related to the Green Deal and Farm to Fork strategy, which is the EU framework for a transition towards sustainable food system. GIs are part of this strategy as the European Union recognizes them as a key vehicle for delivering rural growth. And as such, the European Commission intends to strengthen the GI legislative framework and EU quality policy. In this sense, the guide is fundamental since it represents a practical tool that can be used to unlock further potential and increase GI contribution in terms of public good creation and sustainable production, just in line with farm to fork priorities. In fact, the guide could help with the identification and valorization of sustainable practices that could be included in GI product specifications. AREPO supports, in particular, the voluntary inclusion of economic, social, and environmental sustainability aspects in GI product specifications, since we believe that it will be an important step toward strengthening GI contribution to sustainable production. But I would like to spend some more time on this last point, which is how to increase the GI contribution to sustainable production in order to share with you a AREPO vision and our proposal that we developed to contribute to the revision of EU quality policy. So I would like to start with a fundamental priority concerning empowering producer groups. The project and in general the literature on GIs have shown how behind a successful GI production system lies a strong collective governance. In this regard, it will be key to have a supportive legal framework and assistance from local public authorities in order to back up the community of producers and help them building a strong governance system. So in order to better understand the nature and the prerogative of GIs groups in different member states, we suggest to analyze and study how GI producer groups are structured and what are the differences among member states. We also propose to entrust GI producer groups with powers concerning the supply regulation, extending what are the prerogative for now for GIs, cheese and ham to all GIs. Furthermore, we believe that the producer group's prerogative, like ensuring adequate legal GI protection and promoting and valorizing the quality schemes, should be supported through a rural development measure. That is why it will be fundamental to ensure that the future CIP strategic plans provide the right support for GI producer groups, including support for coordinated and collective activities in order to strengthen the supply chain, financial aid for certification and promotion action, as well as for supporting operating costs of GI groups. Also, it's really important to support activities related to the surveillance and protection of the registered GIs, in particular concerning the support for legal protection costs. Special attention should then be paid to the need to financially support producer groups carrying out evaluation of the impact of registering a new geographical indication, or also of the impact of an already registered geographical indication. This last point is fundamental in order to build strong and sustainable geographical indications and to update product specifications addressing eventual sustainability issues. The second priority I would like to emphasize concerns supporting research and innovation, education, and trainings on geographical indications. This is a fundamental action that will contribute to improve GI sustainability impact and also attractiveness. That is why EU quality schemes should be included in the Commission strategic approach to EU agricultural research and innovation by defining specific priorities and increasing funding and dedicated project goals. And I believe in this sense, the results of Strength2Food project have demonstrated the importance of having specific project goals dedicated to geographical indications. Furthermore, supporting new formative offers at university level will be equally important, since we need GI experts and professionals able to understand the whole complexity, characterization, and contribution of GIs, as well as their territorial impact. Finally, we need new trainings for GI producers and producer groups in order to train young generation of producers, in order to accompany all producer and producer groups through sustainability assessments, and also to help them elaborating valorization strategies encompassing also related activities such as tourism. Among the challenges ahead, there is also the need to improve GI protection and enforcement in the member states, which will be important both for producers and consumers. It becomes more and more important to cover effectively the attempt to abuse GI reputation in third countries, but also on online markets. So protection must also take into account internet domain name registrations. We have also to pay attention to the protection of GIs used as ingredients in a processed product. And in this respect, we believe that a clarification of the labeling rule is needed. This brings me to the importance of ensuring further simplification and harmonization of EU quality policy in order to, in particular, overcome the lack of harmonization among member states. This could be done through the adoption of common guidelines for the competent national authorities, but also through the introduction of training for national authorities and local authorities involved in the process of GI registrations. To conclude, the considerations and insight of Strength2Food project should help us also further improve consumer recognition and understanding of geographical indication. it is clear that we have to improve our efforts toward the information for consumers. And in this sense, it will be fundamental to maintain a dedicated and relevant budget under the EU promotion policy. Also, it will be important to promote the use of the new database GIView, which from our point of view has the potential to give the consumers easier access to readable information on product specification and characteristics. Just to conclude my presentation and to give some point for reflection for the panelists for the discussion after the introductions. I would like to share with you this question, and in particular, I would like to ask the panelists what they think will be the role of public authorities in supporting this process toward a major contribution of geographical indication to public goods, and if they think that further research is needed in order to identify best practices for public authorities. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention. I will give the floor to Emily for her presentation.
Hello, good morning to all. Well, let me join also Julia in congratulating the researcher for the very valuable result of the project in these three areas: food quality scheme, short supply chain, and food public procurement. There were very interesting high insight from all this morning. So the aim of my presentation is to give you, outside from the EU specific sector, but to see a more global vision on why it's so important, this kind of project, on evaluating the impact of these schemes. And I thank you, the organizer, to invite us to this panel, and more generally to be member of the advisory board. That has been really a fruitful experience that allows some cross-feeding among our work of areas. We'll have two times in our presentation. First, I will focus more on food quality schemes and specifically GI, and then Florence Tartanac will talk about short value chain and food public procurement that she prepared together with Luana. Just to give you a bit of context, as you know, the goal of FAO is to achieve food security and nutrition to all, and also in the view of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And on that, the food system approach is very essential to our work to ensure a consistent efficiency of our action. And in this view, the topic of voluntary standards in general, food quality schemes, labor, are seen as very interesting by linking the producers to consumers, so to ensure sustainable production and consumption. So they are interesting in order to link the food supply chain, food environment towards better consumer behavior and healthy diets. So generally speaking, we as I said, we are working on voluntary standards, but more specifically on geographical indication, because we realized since a long time that actually GI are, because of their nature, they are encouraged to the terroir, the way they can produce endogenous development, and the combination between a market tool and the provision of public goods. They really have the potential to contribute to sustainable development and a range of public goods, as I mentioned. But of course, this is not automatic. In fact, we can observe also some, let's say, negative impact on the economic, social, and environmental aspects. So that's why since 2007, FAO has developed a program on quality and origin, on geographical indication, where sustainability has always been at the center of our approach, starting with the origin link virtuous circle that I'm sure some of you will know. Actually, in our normative work or the publication we have created, we benefit from a very good collaboration with researchers. Some of you will recognize themselves. And more recently, the topic of sustainability has really taken more emphasis as we realize how we need to to better raise awareness of stakeholders on the potentiality of GI to contribute to sustainability SDGs. And because there is some emerging topics that deserve really our interest or more work and further research. So to illustrate that, just to mention this publication from our colleague Bin Liu on the potential of GI for nutrition and health. As I said, it's an emerging topic, but with lots of potentiality to go further. And this recent, and not recent actually, it will be available in a few weeks, guidelines we developed with the University of Florence on how to design evaluation framework for GI from, let's say, tailored approach by the stakeholder from a specific, for specific GIs. So we do think that actually evaluation is a really crucial topic if we want to better understand how GI contribute to sustainability and even more improve their contribution to sustainability. So again, I think the Strength2Food project really provide important data and insight, and I was very pleased to learn lots of things this morning. What I wanted to say a bit more regarding, especially in terms of policy, what I think is of interest for you, it's our approach to sustainability for GI, especially with the collaboration, the fruitful collaboration we have with Origin, the International Association for GI, where we are working since 2017 on the sustainability strategy for GIs, where the approach is really to help producer and their association to understand the potential of their GI as a tool for sustainable development, to be able to identify what are the key issues in their system, address this issue, improve the system, and better communicate internally, but also externally, so to improve also the access to market and address consumer expectation regarding sustainability. This approach is actually very complementary to the evaluation framework of Strength2Food. Both are building on the sustainability assessment for food and agriculture, the SAFA framework. And from that, we more than to develop a grid that is used for any GI or any quality scheme, the idea is more that this grid is defined by the association itself, looking at what are the key priority and issue in their system to address, and therefore to select the right indicator according to this need that has been prioritized. What we found very important in this approach, it's voluntary, as the GI is. It's endogenous because it's completely specific to the local system. It's developed by the producer and the value chain themselves, of course, with some support and especially collaboration, alliances. And that allow really to improve the system where it needs to be improved. A key element on that is also to recognize the importance of the possibility to improve and communicate on the sustainability to be available, accessible for any GI, the big or even the small. So where the resources and the capacity shouldn't be an obstacle for doing such assessment and improvement. So from this background of our work on GI, these are a bit the point I would like to raise, also to our panelists to give their view and illustrate with their experience. As we know, I mean, the greening GI is really timely, both because of the EU agenda, but also more generally because more and more countries in the world are interested in using GI as a tool for development. So I think one of the key elements for debate is really to consider the two approaches from, as I presented, something that is voluntary, endogenous to the territory, tailored, made by the actors themselves, which reflect in a way the nature of GIs, versus a system that would be, some requirements that would be generic and that would be compulsory or applied to any GI to contribute to environment or more social elements. So I think it's a very valuable element to discuss in terms of policy. And then the other topic I would like to raise is this emerging topic on GI and healthy diets, which, of course, healthy diet, it's a key element of sustainability that apply not only on the territory, but in general for all consumer, for all the consumers. And on that, would be interesting to know your experience on how to optimize this contribution of GI to a healthy diet. Actually, it's already a topic that we have addressed in various meetings, including some webinar with Origin, and that will be also a topic that we will develop further in the frame of the UN Food System Summit. I wanted also to mention that as a key element to take into account. And the other topic, I think it's very also a topic for debate in terms of information or education of consumer. What I understood, it's labeling is not always very efficient in providing a comprehensive information to consumer regarding the different aspects of GIs, and whether consumer education should be better considered instead of simplified labeling system that could provide even a wrong or confusing information on the potential of GI to contribute to healthy diet. So these are the specific questions to panelists that we'll have a round of a panel session for you to contribute to this element. So the role of consumer education versus labeling, the role of public actors and value chain actor in the greening perspectives, reflecting the topic I mentioned between voluntary or compulsory. And also, I think a topic that is always important to have in mind when talking about sustainability, it's the issue of the trade-off between the pillars, and whether you had some good practices to share on how producer can make efficient decision about the trade-off. So this is the end for my topic on Gianna. I give the floor to Florence, who will speak about short value chain and public procurement. Florence?
Yes, thank you very much, Emily. So I will go to the other two topics that are also covered by Strength2Food, and which are actually topics that we are also working on when we are working on the context of SDG and the importance of sustainability in the food system for healthy diets. And in particular, in our case, we are looking at a value chain approach and the way of considering the food environment, which is at the, let's say, a cross between the end of the value chain and the food environment. So in particular, we are looking in our division at the relation with the social dimension. So the nutrition is our aim, how to improve diet and how to improve healthy diet, but also considering the social dimension. So how to be inclusive, in particular to smallholders, women, indigenous community, and how to maintain also the environmental dimension, so the impact on natural resources, context of climate change, product biodiversity, and others. So the topic of sustainable public procurement is really important for us. Because it's also contributing to the SDG. So as you know, there is a target under SDG 12 sustainable consumption and production, on public procurement. So it's target 12.7. And so we are really contributing to it, in particular through the One Planet Network, which is a network led by UNEP. And we are putting the food procurement also on the agenda of this network. So when we see, and we are mainly, as you know, working in developing countries, not so much in Europe, but we are, and in particular also on schools environment. So how to link the school and the school meals programs with small producers, and how to use this tool not only for providing a nutritious food and healthy diet for the children, but also how to use this program for linking and improving smallholder producers' livelihood. So we know that there are some enabling factors. So we would like to consider that it's important to have the policy, institutional, and legal framework in place. And in particular, in this case, we really would like to emphasize that it's important to have a multi-sectorial approach. So not to look only at one, for example, for the school meals program, not only working with the Ministry of Education, but also with the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, or other ministries involved, or even local governments involved in this program. So for us, it's very important to have this alignment in policy and legal framework, and we have many studies and instruments on this topic. It's also important to have the demand side, let's say the public sector that could adapt is framework for addressing the barrier to entry, such as adequate funding, adapted and inclusive procurement procedures and practices to allow, for example, smallholders to access to these programs. So this is one important part of it. And also on the supply side, as we know, when we want to address, to have smallholders actors more involved in value chain, we really need to have these constraints addressed, and so for them to be able to produce in sufficient volumes, complying with quality and safety, etc. So the next one. So what we would like to give as a specific question to the panelists in relation with this kind of programs. So we want to acknowledge that sustainable and inclusive, in particular for school food procurement, but also for others, really require a multi-sectorial approach and intervention at different levels. So we would like to know if it is something that also emerged from your experience, and what could be the recommendations in terms of policy around this multi-sectoriality of the approach. Also the same for GI, what are the main trade-offs observed, and what types of intervention could be considered to facilitate this kind of intervention? Is the inclusion of smallholders, women, and other, let's say, vulnerable stakeholders in issue also observed in the countries that you analyzed in the Strength2Food program? And what recommendations in terms of practical interventions, especially in terms of enabling factor? So this is mainly what I would like to say, just to highlight some publications. So I think we will circulate the PowerPoint, so we will not go too much into the details. We are also preparing, almost in the final stage of a new publication on public food procurement for sustainable food system and healthy diet that we are co-publishing between FAO, Biodiversity International, and the University of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. And actually, in this book, we have already two papers from Strength2Food researchers. One about measuring and comparing the carbon footprint of different procurement models for primary school meals, and one on the use of geographical indication in public food procurement, with the example of Italian primary schools. So we are really keen to have this cross collaboration between FAO and researchers, and looking forward for more collaboration on this topic. So this is really about a sustainable public procurement. Now, quickly, I would like to go to another issue more related with short supply chain. So it's a specific topic that we are dealing with several years, following a recommendation from the Committee of World Food Security, CFS, about the importance of what they call territorial markets, which are the what we call wet market, open-end market, or markets where small-scale producers, traders, small processors, and retailers are trading food, often food that is being grown sustainably, and which very few data are available on this, especially in developing countries. So CFS recognized this need for more data, and so we decided to work on this together with the civil society organization, in particular with farmer organization. The next one, please, Emily. So we really want to make, with this data collection about this territorial market, make this market more visible, to also develop a mechanism for data gathering, and to establish alliances between different actors, to have an impact on policies and advocate for support and improvement of these markets. So the scale of the process is territorial, so really at really local level. We are talking about the physical markets, not the concept of market in general, but the physical markets in the territory, in cities, but also in rural areas, with some principles that are here details in the slides. The next one. So we developed a methodology for the data collection, and we are starting to pilot this data collection in some countries, mainly in Africa and also Latin America, and we will continue with Asia and Europe in particular this year. We also recognize that there is a lack of data in developing and transition country due to the informality of this kind of markets. Thus, the importance for us to have participatory approaches, in particular with farmers' organization. But the specific question that we would like to ask to the panelists is how to facilitate the data collection and support smallholders in terms of policy and intervention, in particular for this territorial market, and how to consider inclusiveness in this market, and in particular in short value chains, in particular the inclusion of women, smallholders, small and medium enterprises. So I think that's all. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, to all the speakers. Now we're going to introduce the panelists who are going to answer to the questions proposed by the speakers. Well, before I introduce the speakers, I just want to mention that we've pushed the next session to 12:30 to give just enough time to all the panelists to have their 3 minutes. And now I'm going to introduce the speakers. The first one is One from Kasetsart University. I'm sorry if I mentioned it wrong. Steve Quarry from the European Training Academy. Rita Gentili from Colderetti. Mario Veneziani from the Università di Parma. Adam Wilkinson from Impact Measurement Ltd, and Burkhard Schreier from EcoSep. And Emily, do you want me to share the questions or do... No need. You are muted, eh? Yeah, you're muted, Emily. Yeah? Yeah. So, okay, first I will then give the word to Steve. Are you okay with going first, Steve?
Well, yes, I'm happy to talk. You'll have to tell me when 3 minutes is up because I tend to ramble on.
Will do.
Okay, well, my work on Strength2Food has been working on both sides of the public sector food procurement issue. And part of our work has been working with schools in Serbia to help them improve the quality of their school meal procurement, food procurements for school meals. But we've also had activities working with suppliers and other stakeholders involved in supporting the supply of food to schools, trying to identify opportunities of increasing the use of short food supply chains. So that has taken us about 2 years of work at the beginning of the project just to establish our starting point. And we've established that schools in Serbia, the large majority of them that we've been studying, they have to carry out their own food procurements individually, each school. And it's a nightmare for them. And therefore, schools are petrified of changing anything in their procurement documentation, in their procedures, because they are fearful of going against the regulations. So it has been a tremendous challenge for us to persuade schools that they can make improvements by changing the description of foods and changing the eligibility criteria to allow other types of suppliers to bid. So that's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is, after extensive discussion with individual growers, small-scale growers, and also with a number of cooperatives around Serbia, we have established that individual growers are far too small in scale to be able to supply they're large enough to supply the quantity for a single school, but it's not economic for them to deliver, for example, 5 kilos of onions once a week to one school that might be 20 kilometers away. So we've been working with a number of organic growers. We've focused on organic production of vegetables, fresh vegetables, and we've actually supported the setting up of a new organic cooperative in Serbia. It's one of only 2 now in Serbia that specialize in organic food. And as a result of this, we've been working with several schools in Belgrade and in Novi Sad, which is a city about 80 kilometers away, to try to put the 2 together. We've identified a number of schools which are interested in organic produce. We've established that the cost for them over the year, is that 1 minute left or only 1 second left?
30 seconds. We can say 30.
Oh, that's fine. We've established that the cost of introducing organic vegetables over the whole year is typically only around 5% increase. So we've persuaded a number of schools that yes, we can go ahead and buy organic vegetables. That we have worked side by side, holding their hand, filling in the procurement forms, and we've succeeded to get 1 school so far buying organic vegetables, which it has been doing for 6 months. A second school is on the way to buy organic fruit and vegetables, so it can be done, but cooperation of the farmers is essential.
Thank you, Steve. That's a very positive message. I see you're also getting some compliments in the chat. I'm going to give the word now to Rita. Rita from Calderetti.
Yes, thanks, Carlos. Good morning, everyone. Well, from what I can bring on the table is the experience of Calderetti, which is a farmer organization in Italy, in managing a big network of short food supply chain initiatives, which goes under the name of Campagna Amica. And this network is managed in all the Italian territory according to the same set of rules dealing with the brand, the color to use, the management rules within the markets, a set of controls which the farmers are obliged to be under to assure consumers about the quality of their food. This network has the potential to answer to one of the comments that Florence said about visibility, because managing all the farmer markets and all the points which are under the name of Campagna Amica with the same set of rules make these systems well identifiable by the consumers. They can recognize it in all the territory. Moreover, it allows small holder to be part of the network because they can share costs, they can join training activities, they can exploit the promotional information and avoid all these costs which are otherwise they could not be so totally able to face. And finally, a comment on the inclusiveness. What we notice in our experience is that the short food supply chain and the direct sale in general involves a lot women part of the family, the rural families. Even if in Italy we have quite a lot of number of farms run by women, so we are not facing a lot this problem. And what we face that all the activities which goes under the multifunctionalities of agriculture, which has not only the direct sale but also the kindergarten activity with the pupils, farmhouses, are involving a lot women. So this is an aspect which could be which policy could foster to help women and also young people to work in the agricultural sector. I think that for now I can leave the word to others, but if you have a question, I'm here.
Thank you, Rita. Adam, I don't see you on the screen. I know you're having some issues with the camera, but are you here?
Yeah, can you hear me okay,
Yes,
Carlos?
we hear you. Perfect.
Okay. Apologize about the camera. My computer does not wish to let me use it. Thank you for inviting me today, and I want to try and talk a little bit about from a slightly different perspective, but I want to try and use the questions that were posed earlier, particularly about public procurement and what recommendations in terms of practical intervention, especially enabling factors, and what I've learned from that. My role in the project I've had a number of roles about calculating economic impacts, but also about developing tools on the back of the research that's been carried out. And I suppose that my role here in particular has been about developing tools where our aim has been specifically to try and translate the research background into a kind of tangible benefit for practitioners. So the example I want to talk about particularly is the meal analyzer tool, which can calculate the carbon impact of meal services and do so across any form of public sector or indeed any meal service. The difficulty that we've had within the kind of structure of the project is that whilst this is seen as a sort of desirable outcome, the project structure itself then makes it very hard to reach this implementation. So research is funded within the project, but in this case, the necessary coding resources to then turn that into a useful tool for practitioners is not. So in fact, the reason the meal analyzer exists is because my company has paid for it. But that's not really the point. The point here is that if we want to take research and we want to influence policy, and then we want to drive beneficial change around carbon, for example, then what we need is practical methods and methodologies, not just in terms of public procurement and public procurement tendering, but also in terms of the practitioners and the meal deliverers, the other end of the process, so that you join up the chain from policy aspiration to actual change on the ground. And I felt quite strongly within the project that there's a lot of opportunity here to do that, but maybe that we need to look at mechanisms that would enable that to happen more easily. And in particular, for example, if there was a mechanism where you could develop these tools and then you could help the rollout of them and move that process forward, that I think would be of real benefit. But it's a limitation at the moment that one can't do that. And I think that it would be extremely important, particularly around standardization of measurement, to allow that to happen in the future. I think that's the point I really want to make, so I'm very happy to hand back at that stage.
Thank you very much, Adam. The camera was not working, but the message was very clear. I'm going to give the word now to Mario Veneziani from Universidad de Parma.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to the table. Maybe I could address some issues regarding research, considering that I'm working at the university, and as it has been highlighted in many sessions today and also throughout the project, data limitation is obviously for research a big drawback, and from the difficulty accessing the European Union FADN dataset, which is the holy grail for doing farm analysis from a researcher's perspective, to the work we've done in WP5 with the indicators, where we could not really go and collect our own data, but we worked on second-hand data. For instance, the calculations we attempted to do and calculating gender balance indicator were particularly difficult, because these data are not readily available in national statistics or second-hand sources. Therefore, if I want to address how data collection could be facilitated, this could be a role which could be played by producers' organization, by organizations like Campagna Amica, which, as we have heard previously, organizes short food supply chains, or at least farmer markets under a common brand and common organization. This type, the consortia themselves could be involved more and more deeply in collecting data on those dimensions of sustainability which are not commonly analyzed, or for which data is lacking. In turn, this would allow the research, but also the practice, research and practice, to have more data, be better informed, and therefore could more easily strategize, prepare strategies which are evidence-based and not only based on theory or on general suppositions. I probably would like to stop there to give also to other people the opportunity to participate, but I have also thoughts on other areas.
Thank you very much, Mario. Horachos, do you want to go next?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Right, well, thank you very much, everybody, and good afternoon, very late afternoon for me from Bangkok. I want to address just a few points. I think there are so many points on the floor already. First of all, it's about the role of the public sector. I'm not sure why Thailand picked up the registration of GI products so much in the past few years. At the beginning of the project, they were already started to register Thai GI products. And at that time, there were only 4 PGI products registered in the European market, but now there are hundreds of Thai GI products in the country. So speaking of public support in terms of registering the GI products within the country, I think we have sufficient, perhaps too many already. But what I think the public sector should support more is the inclusive management, including small holding farmers or the producer groups. From my experience and observations of so many agricultural products registered as GI products, the Ministry of Commerce trying to help producer groups register the products. But when the production takes place, a lot of times farmers or even producers at the processing level, they don't understand much about their own products. They were not the one who motivate to register the product. So along the line, a lot of times their lack of interest or sometimes the control system doesn't work well. And that also affects the quality of product. So that's from my observation experience. And I observed the conflict within, the area from the producer groups, the farmers, the millers, because the intervention from the public sector, for example, the authorities who help people coordinate at the beginning. And once there are, for example, subsidy support programs, that also creates some conflicts within, the territory. And so far, some of the products doesn't work too well. The last thing about public support or the public role is the understanding of the market, the consumer needs, and what we should aim for the market. For example, we have so many Thai GI products. Only 4 of them register in the European Union markets. And as far as I know, maybe only 1 product, which is Cafe Doi Chang or Doi Chang coffee that Dr. Pichia studied, is the only one that reached the European markets. But the 3 other ones, I don't think they never made to the European markets. And not even sure that they have been sold in any of the Asian markets. So that's probably what my comments on the public role. And the last one is about consumers. I attended earlier sessions and I found that consumer understanding of the labels is still lacking. I think I was surprised that consumer, even in Europe, some of them or a lot of them didn't really understand the meaning of those logos, not to mention Thai people, Asian consumers. So that is something that you have to perhaps work on the communication. And the diet or healthy diet is one interesting topic, and I hope that some of the success GI products would have that nutritional values. It was unfortunate that the cases that we selected for this project were not one of them, but I also studied some other case which is more nutritious. It's a red color rice. It's actually it's the first GI product registered in Thailand, but it was not selected for this project. But maybe we can explore more in the future, perhaps understanding the market and the impact on consumer. That would be one of the things we might be interested in working in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachas. I agree totally with Carmen in the chat. Very good insights. Burkhard, last but not least.
Well, thanks again. Thank you for having me invited. Thanks to those from the Strength2Food team for the nice work that we had together during these last 5 years. A short 3-point statement on your questions and perhaps a little transversely. The first thing, I think in 5 years of Strength2Food, the role of food market has changed and evolved. And I think we could start right away a new project and focusing this time about new issues that came up with more impact, like animal welfare, like biodiversity, and even more than we did in terms of climate action and climate compensation action through farming, and the role that our different quality schemes can play here. So that's about research, and of course public actors are here in charge. The second topic is development. I mean, it's more evident now than it was 5 years ago that we are in a process where we reinvent what food marketing is like. Everybody is looking for regional food, but nobody knows how to process food on a regional level. Nobody knows how to process food, how to organize food logistics on a regional level. For 50 years, we've been concentrating on scaling up. Ever bigger industry, ever bigger lorries, ever more centralized processing. We have to reinvent entirely what is mid-size and small-size technology that still is high quality and that still is cost efficient. So here's a lot of development work to be done. And of course, the public actor is in charge here. And public food procurement can play an interesting role here because it can be a trigger. It can be a spot where the new solutions can be found. And the third point, the last point that I want to make is about consumer relationships. And here, at first I would like to make some semantic suggestions. Let's talk about consumer citizens and not only about consumers. That's the issue. I mean, they are citizens. We all are citizens. We decide as well politically what's happening. And the second semantic issue is about education. That's a term that I would rather suggest to avoid, because education is something about top-down, and education is often about immature or infantilized people. So let's not educate. Let's discuss. Let's have dialogue. Let's exchange on eye level, and let's perhaps train and inform. And let's do this by bypassing the communication between the agri-food sector and consumers that is today ruled and poisoned by the big lobbies. We have to bypass the lobbies. We have to have a new dialogue from farmers to consumer citizens. And to close the proposal or my speeches, I have a nice example where this is working in my home country in Bavaria. Well, today I'm living in France, but in the South German region of Bavaria, there was a referendum last year, and it was the people, the consumer citizens, who triggered the most progressive law about sustainable food policy, that we've seen these last years in this region. So confidence to consumers and action on supply chains. Thank you.
Thank you very much.